Now it's the turn of the Lokhust Heavy Destroyers. $35 in the US or £21 in the UK. You can have units between 1 and 3 models, so a full unit of these does become quite pricey. Now you can also put one of these models in the standard Lokhust Destroyer units as well, but that bite-sized video is for another day. So they're 50 points a pop, and quite oddly, if you do take one in the Lokhust Destroyer unit, they're actually slightly cheaper, they're only 45 points. But let's get into their datasheet. Of course, they're a heavy support selection from my Necron Codex. They've got plenty of keywords. They've got the infantry keyword, they've got the core keyword, they've also got the fly keyword and the destroyer cult units. So there's a lot of interaction which you're going to go through throughout this video. Now stats of note, they move 8 inches, which actually pairs quite nicely with their repulsor platform ability, which allows them to move and fire their heavy weapons. When you combine that with fly as well, makes them even better. Now they're quite resilient, toughness value 5, 4 wounds with a 3+ armor save. Okay, they're not indestructible, but you get a fair amount of toughness 5 wounds there. Now of course they've got living metal, they've got command protocols, they've also got the reanimation protocols as well, although it isn't as useful on these kind of units because you've got to redeem 4 5+ rolls, potentially 4+ rolls when you are doing your reanimation protocols roll. The protocol of Undying Legions may help you out with one of those rerolls to the reanimation roll, but you're preferably going to be choosing the double living metal to be regaining 2 lost wounds as opposed to 1. Now the other ability of note is of course the hardwired for destruction ability, which all the destroyer cult units have. So they simply get to reroll all their hit rolls of a 1. Now what are you going to be re-rolling? So let's get onto the actual weapons themselves. There's 2 weapon options here. One is your more anti-horde weapon and one is your more anti-tank. The anti-horde weapon is the Mythic Exterminator. You get 3d3 shots, so an average of 6 shots there. Strength 7, -1 AP and 1 damage. That's a 36-inch range on that weapon. It does have the blast ability, so it's of course going to be good against infantry horde units. Now strength 7 against those kind of units is probably a little bit overkill if I'm honest with you, although the -1 AP and 1 damage is all you really need against those chaff kind of units. Now the main weapon in my opinion is the Ghost Destructors. Now you only get 1 shot with these, 36-inch range again, heavy 1, but this time it's strength 10, -4 AP and the damage is 3d3. So every time one of these goes through, that's going to be an average of 6 damage, potentially 9 damage if you roll really high, but you can spend a CP to reroll your damage roll. Now how are you going to synergize this unit with the rest of the codex? Well, first of all, they're a core unit, so mine will be done from lots of different avenues. All your Overlord models, your Catacomb Command Barge, your Silent King, all of those can give you a +1 to your hit roll, so therefore you'll be hitting on the 2 and re-rolling that 1 because of the hardwired for destruction ability. Now if you were to take a Destroyer Cult Lord, such as the Scorbet Lord or your Lokhust Lord, they're going to allow this unit to reroll 1s to wound. That is sometimes where dice does get lost, so it isn't a bad option to be honest with you. Now as mentioned in the intro, they're not indestructible, but you can put a 5+ invulnerable save on this unit with a Chronomancer. Now you're not going to make use of the reroll to the charge roll because this unit should not be charging whatsoever, but an invuln save isn't too bad, is it? Other characters of note, a Royal Warden perhaps to be able to fall back and shoot, so you don't want to be tied up in combat as mentioned. Illuminazares could be useful to be bringing one of these models back every turn, as well as doing that augmentation ability. Potentially you can boost their ballistic skill or maybe even their toughness. But personally I would like a Technomancer with this unit, that's the way I play them. Taking a Technomancer with a Canoptic Cloak to be healing D3 lost wounds every time. When you combine that with living metal, the model virtually comes back to full wounds. Now not only that, you're going to be reanimating one of these models every turn, if there was one that had fallen. If you've got 2 units next to each other, which is the way I play them, you can be using the Technomancer Stratagem, which is the Deathless of Rise, and you reanimate another model from a different unit though. But as mentioned, if you've got 2 units of Lokhust Heavy Destroyers with the Technomancer in the centre, and you've lost 1 from each unit, bring 1 back, each side, not a problem. Now characters of note to not synergize with Lokhust Heavy Destroyers. First of all, Necron Lords. They give core units rerolls of 1s to hit. They already do that automatically, they don't need a Necron Lord to do that. Same applies to a Triox Stalker with a targeting relay, you don't need it. Also this one's probably a little bit obvious, but you don't need a plasma sight with this unit, you're not going to be going charged, you don't need the extra strength. So yeah, leave that for the Scorbet Destroyers and the Ophidian Destroyers. Dynasty wise, quite useful for the Mephrit Dynasty for the extra added range on the bigger games, as well as the extra AP, especially if you're going up against power armor, because Armor of Contempt of course is a thing. So -4 AP becomes -3 AP, so power armor actually has a 6+ armor save, but with the Mephrit Dynasty at half range you completely remove that. Also very useful in the Zerakan Dynasty for the reroll to the rune rolls per unit. Ideally you split your Lokhust Heavy Destroyers up into different units, so each and every model gets their own reroll, because from experience you're going to be dropping a lot of dice when you're rolling to hit, rolling to wound, and this is where you could be spending quite a lot of command points. So having those additional rerolls at your disposal yeah, it's going to save you CP throughout the game. Now before we get into the summary and the Planet 40k rating, there's a few stratagems of note that are available to the Lokhust Heavy Destroyers. The first one is Solar Pulse, to be removing the benefits of light cover. Sometimes that can be quite useful. You've got the Extermination Protocol stratagem for 2 command points, which allows the unit to reroll all the wound rolls. I think that one's a little bit too pricey if I'm honest with you, but if you are CP heavy, then yeah, just throw it, it's not a problem. Alternatively, you can go for the Techno Oracular Targeting stratagem for a command point to automatically wound on one of your dice rolls. You don't need to roll for it, auto wound. So this is easily one of the best anti-tank units within our codex. The damage is really high with the 3d3, with those Gorse Destructors. In fact, when you go up against an opponent that doesn't quite know Necrons that well, and they say what's the damage and you say 3d3, the shock on their face is actually priceless. They do become target number 1, but as mentioned, if you've got a Technomancer with them, they've got to remove the entire unit, otherwise they're all just coming back. Now the anti-infantry weapon is okay, but we've got so much anti-infantry in the codex itself, we don't need to be spending our heavy support options on anti-infantry when we've got Necron Warriors, Immortals, Ghost Arcs, Tomb Blades, and that's just the range side of the codex, especially when our other heavy support options aren't anywhere near as good. I also like the fact that you can hide one of these in a Lokhust Destroyer unit, because even with the rule of 3, you can have 3 Lokhust Heavy Destroyer units, that's going to total 9 Lokhust Heavy Destroyers, and then you could have 3 standard Lokhust Destroyer units and have 1 model in each of those units. So that will actually total 12 Lokhust Heavy Destroyers, and that would be completely legal. Now it isn't all good news, unfortunately. I have come across some factions that I kind of struggle against with Lokhust Heavy Destroyers. The first one is Eldari, with their strands of fate dice, which they roll for the battle round. If they're using a craft world that gives them an invuln saved army wide, even if it's a 6+, those strains of fate dice are going to literally be saved for your Lokhust Heavy Destroyers. There's only 3 shots per unit, you're not likely going to be getting all 3 of them to go through, and yeah, they just pull out one of these dice, say that's a 6+, and away it goes. I'd imagine the same sort of thing would apply with Sisters of Battle with their Miracle Dice too. But let's get on to the rating today. This one's another easy one in my opinion. They're a very solid 5 out of 5 stars.